Well, my name is Varnisha Bing. I'm the founder of heragenda.com. Her Agenda is a digital media platform that's working to bridge the gap between ambition and achievement for millennial women. Our motto is no one ever slows her agenda, which essentially means whatever your goal is, go for it, and don't let anyone or anything stop you. So thank you all again for being here and being a part of the Her Agenda community. Give it up for yourselves. We definitely want you to tweet and share the gems and things that you hear from this amazing panel. So hashtag Her Agenda Live, and don't be afraid to be on your phones. It's okay. We're not gonna think you're rude. So how many of you in here would describe yourself as ambitious? I feel as, especially as millennial women, we take that title on almost like a badge of honor. But when you really break down what ambition is, it's only a starting point. Ambition is a feeling, it's an aspiration, it's not an action. In order to turn ambition into action, we have to take steps that turn our desire to do something into an actual completed task. One thing that may come up when moving towards actualizing ambition is fear. Then, when we face that fear and start taking action, there's a chance that despite our best efforts, we might fail. And sometimes the thought of that failure fuels our fear. Those who we admire, who achieve great things, move past this feeling and get things done, and they continue to do what they need to do. So we all feel this way, but those who continue to achieve, while on the outside it seems like they don't embody these feelings, they do. So today's agenda is all about overcoming fear, facing failure, and actualizing ambition. For this conversation, I'm so honored to have a panel of accomplished women with me tonight. We have Soledad O'Brien, CEO of Starfish Media Group, to my left. Let's give a round of applause for Soledad. We have Megan Hooper, founder and CEO of BeSmartGuide.com. Victoria Taylor, Director of Digital Community at WeWork. And last but not least, Vanessa DeLuca, the Editor-in-Chief of Essence Magazine. So my first question to the panel, and anyone can answer this question, would you describe yourself as ambitious, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think ambition is about seeing a very clear path forward of what you intend to do, what you plan to do, what you hope to do. I think ambition is really a little more solidified than just having a dream. It's kind of the dream plus very specific steps that you're intending to take. I remember when I had a job, one of my first jobs in San Francisco, and had a really awful boss who I'm always tempted to name because he was such an asshole. But I don't, because that would be bad form, but I should. And I remember once he sat across from me at breakfast, and he said, "Ugh, you're very ambitious, aren't you?" And it was the first time I'd ever heard someone say ambitious like it was an awful thing. I mean, like my parents had been like, "Oh, you're ambitious, that's amazing." And I realized that like ambition sometimes in the package of a girl is not such a pleasant thing for everybody. And so it kind of brought me to a point of trying to figure out, like, do I tamp down my ambition? Do I disguise it so I have to fake it a little bit? Or screw it, should we just go for it and forget this guy? Which, of course, I picked the latter. But I think ambition is really a specific, goal-directed, tangible things that you have to execute upon to be successful, defined, a real path so that you can achieve it.
Awesome. Anyone can jump in.
I don't know. When I think about ambition, I think ambition is wrapped up in curiosity, and I've always had that natural kind of curiosity about the world and about what the possibilities could be. So I've never really seen ambition as a bad word because it enables the world to open up to you, right? Or for you to be able to embrace everything that the world has to offer, right? So I've never seen ambition as a bad thing, and certainly I've never been brought up to think that, being ambitious is something that's going to, hold me back or stand in my way, or people are going to look down on that. although, like, I've had experiences like Soledad too, where people kind of look at you like, how dare you be ambitious? It's like, well, how dare I not be ambitious?
My next question for the panel is around, okay, so you have an idea for what you want to do, and now it's time for you to take action. So before you maybe start a company or leave a company, what goes through your mind? What emotions do you remember feeling? Because each of you have experienced, having to leave a company, starting a company, Soledad. So you could walk us through what thoughts go through your mind.
So I've had a few lives. I was a theater major, and I have a manager and agent, and I just auditioned for Madam Secretary last week, so I have a lot of failure. I'm told no or just nothing often. And then I was an administrative assistant for a hedge fund, and by the time I was 27, I was the COO, and started off not knowing what a stock ticker was, and then trading structured products and reconciling financial statements. So, and now I run a digital media company with content and community. So I've started new things a lot. For me, and maybe this is a soft answer, but it's the truth, I make decisions and I prioritize based on two things. My mind, which are my values, and then my spirit, which is meditation. So when I think about where I want to go 10 years from now, which is my ambition, I always start at the beginning. What are my values? Who am I trying to serve? What's the outcome if I accomplish this? And having that compass and having that beacon of what that service looks like and where I want to go aligns my list of tasks for 10 years, 5 years, and hourly, day by day. So my core values, being clear about my values, what I value, and what my product or service offers, is the foundation for what I do. Not throwing up is why I meditate.
Yeah, I would say you describe a real strategy, and I would say I think I've been successful because I'm very strategic. There are very few things that I do without really thinking through them. So when I was going to start my media company, and I had worked for NBC stations for about 16 years, and I went to CNN and worked for CNN for 10 years, I really knew absolutely nothing about starting a business. So about 2 years before I left CNN, I started thinking, in fact, I remember going to my agent at the time, and I said, I really would like to start a production company. Like, how would I do that? And he said, well, we don't do that here. I was like, okay. So literally, first thing on my list was, I'm going to need to fire this agent. Like, clearly. I mean, truly, because one, I think that's just a bad answer. So someone who's telling you that, and it's your dream, and you're paying them a large chunk of money, like, they just need to go. Maybe not that moment, but they're not going to be part of the path because they don't know how to get you there, and they clearly don't want to try. So, that was like, I'm going to have to get the right people to help me figure out this thing that I have no idea how to actually do. And then I just kept having meetings with people. Okay, so could I do a production company? How would I do it? How much money does that take? And I started saving tons of money, had a good job so I could pack away some money, and really just making lists all the time and crossing off. Chat with this person. This person runs this. Chat with that person. Talk to this person. So that by the time I was ready to go, I really felt like I had a very solid grounding on just tons of information. Some of it was contradictory. People around me who I thought could be helpful. And mostly, I'd say 65% of those folks were people that I was able to take into the next step. Some other people just, their information turned out to be irrelevant or useless, or they were busy or whatever. But it was always about being very strategic. What do I need? How do you get there? What's the next step? And then not crumbling when you made a really bad mistake and you screwed up. You had to really just be like, okay, well, this is the learning curve. Let's keep going forward.
Did you put a timeline on yourself? Did you feel pressure to start your production company by X date? Because it seemed like it just aligned in a way. Because when you got let go or you left CNN, then your company formed.
No, it didn't. I mean, again, it was a couple of years before I knew I was going to do it. So by the time we were having discussions and they were offering me things at the company that I didn't really want to do, and I'm a big fan of, if you don't feel like someone's really valuing you, you should just go. And so it allowed me to say, well, thanks, but I'm starting a production company. I don't know what it's called yet, but I've been working on it. And literally one night my husband's like, here's what I think we should name it. I'm like, I like that name, let's go. And then, so that by the time we were announcing that I was departing CNN, it was to start something that existed, and within 2 days of my leaving, we had several $1 million in orders to do projects. Literally, it was actually the next terrifying phase, because I was on my dining room table, and my husband's like, I love you, but no, you can't stay at the dining room table, right? We're going to get an office, but so every step had its own. Even the great steps had its own terrifying challenge within it. So it didn't really feel like it was coming together. Sometimes you have to just say, this is what we're doing, and then you follow up by executing on it.
I just have one more follow-up question. You're on the dining room table. You're overwhelmed by the $7 million. What did you do first? You talked to your husband. That was part of it, but...
First thing I did was my assistant had also left CNN, and I hired him on the spot to stay with me for a year. I said, I literally need somebody who can just help me manage the process. And so I asked him if he would stay. And he was the first person we hired, and he was great, and it was super helpful. But just, we started developing a team. And some people were great for the team for the first year, and they wouldn't stay on. And some people have stayed on forever. And everybody, and I kept talking to entrepreneurs in every business. I'd say, oh my God, I don't know if I'm making good hires. Like, of course you don't know. No one knows if you're making good hires. Some people will take you this far, and then you need to move on to the next thing. And it's, if you go in thinking that, you're not marrying them forever, you're getting through phase X, and once you're done, you'll move to the next thing. It makes it all much easier.
I'd like to also, for the rest of the panel to touch on, so Soledad briefly mentioned when she told her agent about starting a company, how he wasn't supportive. So when you have ambitions and you have people, or you tell people about your ambitions and they're not supportive, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you focused? Or how do you even decide whether or not you should stay on that? How do you decide whether or not you should listen to that person?
So typically a lot of people come to me with their ideas, and my goal is to be very, very supportive of everyone's ideas. And I do a lot of just meeting with and informational meetings with everyone. From a couple weeks ago, I met with this relative of a random person on Reddit who had just moved to New York, and she wanted to get started in magazine writing and publishing. And so I was talking with her about her career, what she'd done so far, giving her advice on, you need to get active on these social media platforms. You need to start figuring out what your persona and your brand is and stay true to your brand. Don't be pressured into writing a piece that you're not comfortable with that you're going to regret 5 years down the road. Be true to who you are. And so I think that it's all about really trying to give back, at least for me. So I think that when I'm always trying to support other people, and I feel like the rising tide raises all boats. If you have a really great idea for an app, or a really wonderful idea for a fashion brand, or a really great idea for a hair care product, or whatever it might be, there's room for you out there. Be strategic, the way that Soledad said. Do your research and reach out to others, and they will help support and guide your ambitions.
Megan?
Before my first life, I was a ballet dancer, and so I've always been a performing artist to some extent, and I'm very familiar with the creative process. And I took the creative process into hedge funds, that was so successful, and I'm applying that now. The creative process is that you start with nothing, you create something. It's horrible, it's crappy, it's not at all what you want it to be. You're filled with self-doubt. People are very critical of it, and then you tinker nights and weekends because you simply love to tinker. You're an artist, whether that's code writing or whatever. I love to tinker. I will tinker with the CSS on my site Saturday night. Love it. Love to tinker. And so that is my practice. It's my spiritual practice, and it's how I love to spend my time. So because I was an artist, first of all, I'm used to the creative process being a painful process. I'm used to having self-doubt, hating something. Ira Glass has this YouTube, and he's so right. You create something because you have good taste, but because you're new at it, the thing you created isn't very good. And because you have good taste, you know it isn't very good. So at that point, most people give up. And he said the point is to do a large volume of work over a large period of time so that what you make is then good. And so I am just really, really used to putting something out there visually, and I do my photography or performing, and it not being good. I'm used to living with horrible self-doubt, where I hate what I've done. and I'm so embarrassed to put it out, but I have to put it out. And I hear from other people, when I started in the arts world and I went into hedge funds, people were like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? You're selling out. You have no soul. And then when I went to the hedge fund world, to digital media, but you've never done that before. I'm like, well, I never ran a hedge fund before. That worked out. So I'm really used to self-doubt, and I'm really used to negative criticism. And for me, the creative process, anything that I've ever done that's been of value, was a 2-year tinkering. And after about 2 years, I was like, okay, it's just starting to look the way I envision. Year 10, you're gonna love it. And what's funny, year 2 of tinkering with this thing and learning and starting from scratch and not knowing anything about technology and teaching this myself how to do math or code, those same naysayers all of a sudden flip and they're like, oh, of course you're always successful at whatever you do. It always works out when you do it. I'm like, you were the people who didn't return my emails, and now you're asking me for something on my platform. It's you have to be very gracious.
Yeah. And too often people are afraid to put things out because they don't think that it's good, they don't think that it's right, and they want it to be perfect. But the first version of her agenda that came out, hated it so much. I didn't even want to look at it, but I continued to just put it out there, and it helped me to get support and get people on board because they were able to see what I was trying to do, which we criticize ourselves way more harshly than other people really do. So,
But also, I think you have to remember, where you're getting the criticism from. For me, a person who you're paying cash to,
Very true.
who says they're not going to be on board, like they need to go because you're paying them. They should just go, right? That's like a guy who washes your windows saying like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that. You're like, oh, then fine, you need to go, done. And then your mother's always going to say, right, but is it safe? Is it solid? But that your mother will always say that. That is what she's going to say. So you have to kind of assess everybody's feedback in the category that it's going to come in, and you have to pick and choose. There are going to be 10 people whose advice always rises to the top, right? And there are always going to be the ones who you say, this person's very sane and they are responsible, and I want to build a life like they have. And so I really kind of was able to whittle it down to probably like 10 people whose opinions I really, really valued. And then, other people you go to for the emotional stuff. I'd be like, Mom, I'm failing at work and I'm a terrible mother and I'm just, I want to quit. She's like, you can quit tomorrow. Get through today, you can always quit tomorrow. And so emotional stuff, my parents. Once I created that team, it was much easier to move forward because those people really weren't giving you criticism. They were giving you advice on how to tinker in that process. And I feel like, I'm at the 2-year mark. I am so ready to love what I'm creating. So I think it's really key to find that little team around you that you're actually listening to.
definitely. And you filter the feedback, and there are certain trends, and when those trends rise, you have to pay attention to, okay, more than one person said this, so there might be something to it. I want to ask a question to the audience really quick. How many of you are thinking about a career switch, or you're interested in so many things that you don't know even what you should start with? Wow.
What's the average age in this audience, would you say?
I would say millennials. How many of you are 20-something or under 32?
How many people are under 27? 25? Under 25? Under 23? Oh, okay.
Well, I want to take a moment to go to Vanessa, because Vanessa DeLuca, we did a feature with you on her agenda, and your story truly resonated with our audience. So Vanessa started her career in a whole different industry. She didn't enter into publishing until the age of 30. And before
That's
that,
right.
she worked, is that?
No, that's absolutely right.
And
yeah.
before that, she worked as a fashion buyer for about 7 years before she made a career switch. And so I want to talk about that moment when you decided to make a career switch. What was going through your mind? How did you feel? And then what methods and strategies did you use to ensure that you would be successful when you did do your career switch?
Well, I'd been working retailing. Well, when I graduated from college, I thought one of my ambitions was to be a fashion buyer. I thought it was very glamorous. I wanted to travel the world. I wasn't even thinking about, I have to really crunch numbers a lot. And that is totally the opposite of what I am. I'm a creative person. I love reading. I love literature. And I had found myself in a space where it was doing the exact opposite of what where my heart was. And so I tried it for about 7 years because I thought, well, maybe I'm just not in the right place here, or maybe I just don't have the right manager there, or maybe I just haven't found the right fit for me. I figured if I give it enough time, it'll all kind of fall in place, but it never fell in place. And I was miserable. And I would go to work every day and just like, why am I doing this? This just doesn't make any sense. So I was an English major in college. I always wanted to write. I had continued to take writing classes. The entire time I was doing retail, I was taking classes at night. I was going to the New School or, going to NYU or whatever, just to do anything to just keep writing, which I loved. And finally I said, you know what, like, this is silly. I should just, take a leap of faith and put myself out there. So the company that I was working with at the time decided to relocate to St. Louis, and I just knew that I went to visit, but ultimately I decided I'd want to make that move. So I thought, well, here's my opportunity. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm only really taking care of myself. If I'm going to make this kind of a change, and there's not a lot of people depending on me, let me do this now. So I basically told them I wasn't going to move. I went to NYU as a summer publishing institute, book and magazine publishing. I chose that program because they have a job fair at the end, and I thought, oh, I'll get to meet people who could actually hire me, A. And B, I also chose it because people from the industry came and taught the class. So you get to meet Tina Brown, you get to meet Cindy Stivers, you get to meet all these people who could offer you a job. I really took full advantage of that program. It was an 8-week summer program. At the end of it, there was a job fair. And lo and behold, I did eventually get offered a job as an editorial assistant at Glamour magazine. Now, I had been making a lot more money than an editorial assistant at Glamour magazine makes. So I had to make some choices, and the hard choices was I gave up my apartment, I moved back in with my parents, and I felt like it was worth it to make half the salary that I was making at the time, right, when I was in retail. And I'm telling you, like, from the day that I walked through the door and wrote my first piece, which was a fashion Q&A column, which I was so excited about because I got a byline, I was hooked. I knew that was absolutely the right place for me, and I've never regretted a minute of it. And the thing is, like, it really is true. Once you find something you're really passionate about, the money does come. Like, you figure it out. Everything does fall into place eventually. You just have to be patient.
I want to really talk about fear. And how do you use fear when you are faced with a new challenge or a new opportunity? How do you acknowledge that fear and use it to your advantage?
I use fear every day. I face fear every day. Every decision, especially around the time now where we're closing the magazine, and I'm thinking about that cover, and I'm like, oh God, I really hope that that's going to sell. And like, did I make the right choices or the right lines? I mean, there's a lot of kind of doubt that can come into that. But the beautiful thing is, I remind myself, you've been here before, you've been through this process before, you know what to do, you know how to trust yourself, you know how to trust your gut, you know how to listen to that, and then you just push forward. I get afraid when I don't feel fearful, when I'm super confident. Then that's usually when I probably really shouldn't have been that confident. Fear gives us just a little, it's like just a little checks and balances that gives you just enough to kind of like say, okay, well, let me question if this is really, really the right path. And then, I go through that step and move forward.
I agree. I feel a little bit of fear, or a lot of fear, every day to some extent. I was super fearful when I started, trading or working in finance, and now I'm fearful when my site goes down. And so, but I agree. I think I'm a little bit of a fear junkie because I know I'm evolving and I'm growing. Back to my background in the performing arts, stage fright is something everyone experiences a little bit. Right before you go on stage, you get butterflies or you feel nervous. And I was very influenced by one acting teacher who told me to get over stage fright. Just remember in the scene that it's not about you, it's about the other person. And when I focus on the other person, I stop thinking about myself and my fear goes away. And so I notice when I'm feeling very fearful in a debilitating way, writing an email or something that I think it's affecting my performance, it's because I'm so focused on myself. And I just tell myself, it's not about you, it's about the other person. It's about the person you're helping, serving, talking to. And immediately I become my best self. And I'm so excited and so enthusiastic to go to bat for the other person or the person who will benefit from the piece we put out. And that helps me really quickly, very quickly shift.
I think fear is very organizing for me. You know, if you can say to yourself, okay, why am I afraid? And if the answer is because you know you have not prepared for this meeting, right? Then you have to sit down and go do the work. You know, why am I prepared? I feel like I am not wearing the right outfit for these people or that they are not going to like me. Then you need to go figure out what you should be wearing. Like, if you really can take that, I think unbridled fear that's just like, is not helpful. But fear where you say, okay, let's drill into this. You know, why am I anxious about this? And I'm anxious because I don't know the statistic, or I'm not sure my presentation is really good. It gives you the opportunity to go back and then say, yep, I've got it. I know, you know, I know what I'm doing. And I think that I try to use fear to just direct me. You know, you got to be a little silent and figure out what is it telling you, and then direct you to, you know, honing what you're trying to get through so that it's high quality.
Victoria, did you want to add something?
I don't really get scared of a lot of things, which is weird because I worry a lot. So I worry all the time, but I'm not really scared. I just tend to be like, oh, what happens if this? But it's more like, you know, you're not really scared. And when you look at the Star Wars movies, you know, C-3PO and how he's always like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like, that's a lot more kind of my approach to things, because C-3PO is fine, right? He gets through everything. He's just like, R2, where are you? And like, they're always fine. But he worries a lot. So I think that tends to be, the busier I get, the less worried I can be because I don't have time to focus on those things. So I love being overly busy because it allows me to not obsess over blah, 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 like all these mundane things. So I love being busy. I find that it helps me thrive and worry less. But I don't really get scared of very much. I think that if life isn't surreal, you're probably not doing it right. So like very surreal situations are completely normal to me, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't have worn acid wash jeans today in retrospect when I was going to this really important meeting, but I'm here now and I'm dressed completely inappropriately. So how are you?
And also, congratulations to you on your new position at WeWork. Fantastic.
Yes.
I wanted to touch on what happened. So being let go from a job is hard for anyone. And for you in particular, there was a lot of media attention around what happened. So I want to talk to you about what that moment was like for you, and how did you stay afloat while there was so much intense attention on what was going on with you and your job and what you were working on.
Yeah, so I mean, I know everybody was talking about ambition earlier, and you know, I don't know if anybody's a Game of Thrones fan here, but you know, I would, if we were in Game of Thrones, like that's typically what I would define as ambition, is like, I want the throne. For me, I much more relate to the character Brienne, because she does what she loves. She serves the people that she's passionate about. She gives them 150%, and she keeps her promises, and she isn't ambitious. She just wants to be there for the people that she cares about and get the job done. And so that kind of is my ethos when it comes to everything, really, is to be there for the people that I care about. So obviously, you know, it was a very kind of surreal sort of experience, but what really helped me was getting offline. I had planned out a trip to visit family the 4th of July weekend anyway, and so we're talking, you know, the traditional July 4th experience with fireworks and family and corn on the cob and, you know, all of those things that people associate with it. And it was just so great to get offline and to kind of be centered and be surrounded by people who care about you. And I think that, you know, the most important thing is just to reach out to people, you know, because anytime anything traumatic happens to anyone, you know, whether it's the loss of a beloved person in your life, whether it's, you know, getting really sick, whether it's, you know, finding out that your life circumstances have changed, if you reach out to others, they will offer you support. And I think that so much of what these incredible women who surround me on the stage do is provide beacons of support and inspiration to others. And I think that just by knowing that you're not alone and that there are others who can give you their guidance and their support and their well wishes, that just goes so far.
often one of our biggest fears is failing. And so I would love for, before I open it up to questions, if you could think about a time that you failed and maybe you reflect on a lesson that you learned from that or what happened. Because when we think about failing, what is the worst that could happen, really? Sometimes we build it up in our mind, and sometimes it's not really at all as bad as we think that it will be. And really, sometimes we take away an important lesson, or we pivot, or we learn how to do what we're doing better.
Or sometimes it's terrible and you get fired. Like,
Or
truly.
that.
I mean, I really, I left my job a couple of times when I was at CNN. The first time I was fired, I was doing a morning show, and then they switched me to documentaries. And I remember thinking, because we had ratings that would come out every single day, right? So there was a measure of failure and success, which you literally had no control over. You would think, that was a great show, and you'd have bad ratings. And then you'd be like, wow, I think that might be the crappiest show we've ever done in our entire lives. And everybody would be like, woohoo, it did great. So there was no correlation between the quality of your work or even how well you did and the ratings. And the ratings were this measure of failure and success. And so I actually found that I just couldn't judge myself by the ratings of something because I was proud of certain things and I was still proud of them, even if they didn't do well. Like I still liked doing them. And there were all these other measures that we knew, right? Was it promoted? Was there a football game on at the same time? I mean, little, things that you had no control over. So to me, ultimately, what failing taught me, and I remember being brought into my boss's office, he had this thing. You could press the button and the door would close, like the button under the desk, right? So I walk in and he's like, click, and the door closes. It's the weirdest thing. It was so weird, right? So you're like, something's up because he hasn't moved and the door just closed. And I remember he sat down, I was standing up and we were supposed to have lunch. And he said, I just want you to know, I'm taking you off the show. So this was when I did a morning show called American Morning. And weirdly, I had been just talking to my husband about it the night before. Like, I don't know, I just feel like it's such a weird time at this show. What do you think? He says, well, what are you gonna do if they, if they take you off the show? And we kind of talked about it for an hour. And so when I walked in, I had already processed, like in my head, what would happen. And I said to him, oh, so we're not having lunch or we are having lunch? He's like, oh my God, yes, we're having lunch. Are you gonna cry? I was like, no, should I cry? He said, no, you shouldn't cry. But we ended up having, at lunch, we took out a napkin and we drafted an entire new picture of what my job would be. I would run documentaries for CNN and we started an entire unit around me. And what went from being a completely horrible, disastrous mess, oh my gosh, they just fired you off a show, actually ended up being the thing that would increase my value so much that years later I'd be able to start a company and have it pretty much from the get-go be pretty successful because it was the documentaries that allowed me to create a very specific voice that allowed me to later go out and individually meet with funders and others. So I guess I look at failure as, what is it? I mean, I didn't feel like I failed on the show. I think at some point people wanted to go a different direction, so I don't feel badly about it. If there was any lesson to learn, it was always be prepared and calm about the next phase. What really saved me was that I had in my head kind of worked out. I didn't cry, and I cry all the time, so I'm not going to bash anybody who cries. But I had a strategy. Right, so he was so unnerved by the fact that I was not unnerved that he literally gave me every single thing I asked for on this napkin over lunch because I was like, okay, well, here's what I'd like to get paid and this is what my title should be and da-da-da-da. And so I think the key out of failure is actually when it's going down to keep your head and remember that truly there's a very good likelihood that it's actually going to be teeing you up for something very, very interesting and good. So if you make a mess of the exit, you're just going to damage the opportunity that could be coming out. And I think in the same thing with the second time that I left CNN with a different boss, same thing. I was like, this is what I want to do. These are the opportunities I want to have. I want to own every single thing that I've done here. And I think they were sort of surprised. So they're like, okay. I walked away with all the material, the docs that I had ever created for CNN. I own them, which has never been done before. But it wasn't like, I don't think I was so genius. I think I just was level-headed at a time when everybody's thinking, are you going to cry? And so it's the key in not crying is not because of any of the millions of reasons people tell you not to cry. It's because it distracts from what do I need to get out of this meeting so that my next step is a really good step forward.
Lessons from failure.
Okay, so so I tried out for the editor-in-chief job twice before I actually got it. I put my, it was like a bake-off, and I threw myself out there, and the first time around didn't work out, but I ended up being like the new editor's number 2. So I got to see, learn a lot about her role and about being number 2, what that's like, right? Then I left Essence for a period of time. I came, was looking to come back, and again, tried out, did a bunch of interviews, thought, okay, this time I know more, I could really get this. Again, crickets. Nobody was having it. Like, nope, thanks, but move on. And it could have been one of those situations like, well, this is never going to happen. Like, this is never going to happen. But something told me that it just wasn't my time. Sometimes you just know, like, maybe it's just not my time. I truly believe this is the right thing for me. I believe this is going to happen for me. I want it to happen for me because this is an audience that I want to serve. I just need to get into the right place at the right time. And eventually it did happen, it took me a couple of years, but so what? I learned a lot in those years. I got to see a bunch of other editors do the job, learn from their successes, learn from their challenges, and really figure out who I would want to support me in the role and who I would want to, the things I would want to do if I got the chance. It kind of helped me kind of fine-tune my thinking around it. So I didn't really see it as failure at all. I saw it as just kind of like, okay, this is a temporary setback.
Not right now, not yet. And I love that you shared that because often we only hear about when it happens, when the victorious moment occurs. We don't hear about the attempts before the victory comes to be. So that's really important, I think, for all of us to hear. I would love to open it up to questions right now.
Hi, ladies. How you doing? My question is for Soledad, but it's open to the ladies if they've ever experienced this too.
You can also say your name.
Oh, my name is
your
Laureen.
name and where you're from.
My
how
name is
you are.
Laureen. I'm from Long Island.
Where in Long Island? I'm from Long Island.
Uniondale?
Good town.
Oh, okay. So,
Neighbors-ish.
So my question is, I think I'm in this position, and I think maybe some other ladies might be in this too, where you have what you're good at, and then you have your passion, right? So I recently got a job with what I'm good at, with what my work experience has taken me to.
Which is what?
Working in social services as a caseworker. But my passion is sports, and I actually have a blog called Beyond the W where I write and I interview WNBA players and things like that. So my main focus with this job, honestly, is to make income to fund my website. But my fear is because of the demands of the job, not being able to fully pour into the website that the way I have over the past year that I haven't been working. So for you, when you were working at CNN, but you were still kind of building up your media company on the side, is that something that you were feared or that you experienced, and how did you get past it?
It's really, really hard, and I think you actually have to be very disciplined, right? If you really are thinking about transitioning to another job, right? If you're saying, listen, part of the reason I'm doing this blog is not just for love, but my dream one day is that I am making income from the thing that I'm passionate about. If that's the goal, then you actually have to say, therefore, I need to spend X number of hours every single week on my blog, and I'm going to schedule it in so that I do. And you're going to make sure, and I'm going to write X number of articles, and I'm going to do X number of interviews. Otherwise, it's very easy to come home and, sit on the couch and eat Cozy Shack rice pudding. Not saying I did that. I'm just saying it could happen. So I'm a big believer. It's very hard to run a company and then also be talent, because I'm a correspondent as well, and then to run to business meetings and work on deals to grow the company. Like, I live on airplanes. And however, if I didn't do all of those things, the company won't proceed the way I need it to. We'll hire, probably at the end of this month or in January, a president of the company, which will be a big step for us because I've now gotten everything where I need it to be. So I think you really have to be very specifically disciplined. And again, if I could leave anybody with a piece of advice to me. It's strategy, strategy, strategy. Things just won't happen. You know, if you want to get to a place, you have to actually map out the steps that are going to bring you there. So you're going to make sure that you're interviewing players from the WNBA, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you're sending the blog to the people who run the WNBA. And you're going to put on your list of goals, I'm going to be a speaker at a conference that the WNBA does. Like, that's my goal. And I'm going to, so you have to make sure you have that list going, or you're going to look up in 10 years, and because you've been busy, which we all are, you won't have gotten to the things that you really were passionate about. I'm a big list writer. I'm a big scheduler. And I think that's the way to make that dream happen for you.
From my perspective, I would recommend that you try to look for ways or things that combine those two things as well, because social services is so important. You're helping out people who are in need and who really need your care, and I'm sure that at some point during the course of the day, getting kids outside, getting people excited about sports and athletics and fitness, that's a really important field. I mean, Mrs. Obama is really passionate about that. So thinking about ways that you can combine what you do professionally with what your passion is, I mean, maybe there's an idea there for a nonprofit or a campaign or something like that.
Hi, my name is Brooke. I live in Harlem, but I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. My question is actually for Megan. I am also a performing artist, creative writer, journalist. So how on earth do you maintain your sanity by doing all of your passions, your loves, while giving them 100%? And at the end of the day, you know that you're not going to end any of them. You're always going to do them because you love them so much. How do you push through regardless?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question, and I don't know. I just do. So Be Smart Guide that I run now, in 2008, there weren't a lot of resources for women, and I felt pretty badass because I was the COO and I was of a hedge fund, and I was 27, and I'd really been able to, I was very proud of what I had accomplished, and I thought if I can do this, someone else can too. And so I wanted to create a supportive community for women, and because it's a supportive community for women, I'm very fueled by working on my passion projects, but I spend a lot of time talking to young women about their goals, and we have community mentorship groups, so that is draining. I would welcome conversations with anyone, but you get drained because so that's where I get drained every day. I'm just pouring, listening, connecting, and trying to be of service in the way people need. And that drains me, and every day I do feel exhausted. And so I feel like this is another soft answer again, but every day I start my day, I love Marianne Williamson prayers. I start every day, and I think, and there's that quote about Beyonce has the same number of hours in a day that we all do, and so... And I'm like, okay, gotcha. So I start every day, and I recognize I can't do everything, but I can do everything I'm supposed to do, including the rejuvenating time and the sharpening the saw time. So I schedule time to an hour every day where I kind of watch The Real Housewives of something, and I rest, but I begin every day, and I sort of say to, the universe, show me everything I can do today and help me not do what I'm not supposed to do today. And so I every day go to bed feeling like I did no more, no less than what I was supposed to do. Yes, maybe I got rerouted and I went and sat down for a 2-hour coffee and my to-do list needs to roll over. But I have very strict scheduling and lists, of course, too. But I recognize that that's where I was supposed to be. So I try to be very open, I try to schedule, and I also recognize that I have enough hours to do every day what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I would tell myself when I worked 80 hours a week in finance and commuted to Connecticut on a train and was starting my startup. And my eyes would water because they were so tired. And I remember I would have to wipe away the water to see the computer screen on the train as it moved. So if you're doing that, you're on the right track.
We have time for one more question. And then hopefully, if some people tweet you guys questions, you'll be able to answer them.
You bet.
Hi, good evening, ladies. My name is Joelle, and I live in New Jersey. I'm also originally from Long Island.
What town?
Valley Stream.
All right.
So I'm very ambitious, like these other ladies, young ladies in the room. I'm also a wife and a mother, and one of my fears is that my relationship with my husband and with my kids, even more importantly, is going to fail because of my ambition. So, if that makes sense. Do you ladies have any advice for work-life balance? Like one really quick tip I can kind of sticky note to the bathroom
Yeah, I have
mirror.
a very quick tip, which is happy mommy, happy everybody. Truly. And I think there's a really interesting shift sometimes to wanting to be a martyr for the cause, when you're cutting corners off the bread and like, oh, they don't like to have the edges on the bread. Please. My mother was such like a tough nut immigrant mom and I think that kind of parenting is actually pretty good. Like you'll figure it out. And that's the best way to get your kids. They don't really need hand holding. They actually need to learn how to figure things out by themselves. So I have 4 kids. When I was working at CNN, I was pregnant with twins. And so I had 4 kids under 4 when I started my new job. I would cry every day because twins are ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And they were crazy. It was just exhausting. Like I would love to come to work. I was like, oh my God, I put my head on the table like, oh, I love being here. It's so quiet. Like, a meeting that started at 1 and finished at 2. Like it was just so normal being around grown-up people. So yeah, you are going to take things away and you're going to feed yourself and you're going to feed yourself emotionally, and because you like to work and you have joy in your job, it's going to make you feel good. And everyone's just going to have to figure it out without you, because you're not Saint Teresa, you are mom, and mom has stuff that she gets to do as well. And I used to tell people, like, we all get to be happy in this household. There are no martyrs here. Everybody gets to have joy in their day and to be going for something. And we're all here to support each other. And that means some days you're going to have to figure out how to microwave something and eat it. Like, that's it. And I think being very real about it, I see my daughters are now 13 and 15, and they're so self-sufficient. And they really have, I feel like I've really taught them about what the opportunities can be for women in the workplace and how much stuff you can do if that's your dream and that's what you want to do. I don't think you need to, feel sorry for yourself. I think the person, and I would switch, you said, my husband and more importantly, the children, I would switch that, actually. I'd say more importantly, your husband. It really is helpful to have a very good partner. You will get through a lot of crap a lot easier if you have a really good partner. Kids are resilient. You and daddy have to be like, no, because we say so. That's it. Like, that's the rule. And so that's actually the relationship to work on, where they feel valued, they feel like you're ambitious for them as well, that thing. And the kids, if the two of you are together and you're strong and you're supporting each other, kids thrive in that. They thrive in that. So I'd say focus on him and that relationship, and everybody else will benefit from that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. So thank you all. My name is Nicole Sanchez. I live in New Jersey, and I'm the founder of a tech startup called eCredit Hero, where we're building the 5-minute credit fix. Okay, just throwing that out there. I wanted to say, yeah, if you're a founder,
she's raised a ton of money, and she's amazing.
Okay, so one, I have a question for you, Vanessa, but I'm going to say thank you to you, because 4 years ago, I saw a documentary called Black in Silicon Valley. Yeah. I'd never seen people like me. I have fancy degrees, but I'd never seen people like me actually start an app. And I want to just say thank you for making me realize that it was possible.
You're most welcome.
Okay. So my question is for you, Vanessa. In tech, we talk a lot about disruption. We talk about ambition. We talk about MVP. And you guys have, with the Essence Beauty Box, a new ambitious thing. Mike, I'm curious about how you think about when you have an established brand and you're making a bet, how you get through the fear of failure and how you think about actualizing that ambition.
Thank you for the question. I think that, quite honestly, the reason that we the reason we do anything is we want to serve our audience, right? We knew that there weren't a lot of products in this space that speak specifically to the needs of our women, and we knew it was an opportunity for us to give businesses of color a chance to be showcased in this box. So we can support our own community, and we can also serve a larger audience. So it really, honestly, it was quite easy for us to decide to come into this space because we know how much we love beauty, we know how much we love to look good, and we love to have products that work for us, but we also know the struggle, which is that the right for my hair texture, for my skin tone, for my specific skin issues? All of that is something that we struggle with. So we started with something that we know, if we can do this for Black women, if we can get this right, then we know she is going to love us. You know, we know she loves us, but we want to do more for her. So that's what you start with. How do we best serve who we care about? We care about this audience. We know the things that are challenges for her because we live it, right? And we talk about it all the time. So it was a very easy decision to come up with Essence Beauty Box because we really, truly felt that this is something that's going to serve our audience well and that she will appreciate it. And, oh, by the way, give budding entrepreneurs a chance to help develop an audience and grow, which is really bringing it a full circle. So that was really the thinking. And anything that we do beyond that, any extension, if you think about the festival, part of the reason we do the festival every year isn't just to have great concerts, it's for that daytime experience that's all free, where people get to come and hear amazing speakers like a Soledad, like a Al Sharpton. I mean, you get exposure to the best thinkers out there and really have an opportunity to connect with your community, right? So that's serving our audience. Everything we do is for them. As long as we keep that in front of us, then I always feel like, you know, that's why we've been around for 45 years and hope we'll be around another 45 more.
All right, we're gonna wrap up. I would love to thank us too for hosting us in this amazing space. Didn't you enjoy networking out there and then this beautiful space right here? So thank you to us too. Thank you to each and every one of the panelists for sharing, being honest and transparent, and really digging deep and telling us those stories and those moments that we don't hear about. And I believe I've covered everything. So now we'll go into some post-event mingling and let you guys network a little bit more. We have to be out of here by 8:50, so we have just a few minutes. So make sure you identify who you want to talk to, but make sure you spoke to the person next to you. Exchange contact with your peers. And thank you all for coming. Can we give a big round of applause for all of the panelists and all of you?